If one were to believe certain factions in political campaigns, one would be possibly inclined to think that everything in this country has gone wrong at the moment, not because of the decisions voters are making themselves, but because the dastardly media is out there using their patented brand of mind control to drill deep into brains everywhere and leave behind nothing but scurrilous lies and half-truths. Some of that is indeed the case, thanks to basement-founded internet blogs and the current spate of so-called experts on everything from political gasbaggery to conspiracy theories that indicate this should be the wrong person and they become president. My God, brains will be seen leaking out of ears across America, which might happen, but not if we all ascend to the use of a little common sense when it comes to the legitimate media. Let's begin there, but also take a few minutes to talk about a group of Americans that truly need attention from any government before they and their culture disappear. We'll get to that momentarily. It's a pleasure to welcome back former editor at the Wall Street Journal, weekly columnist for the New York Post, syndicated columnist and veteran journalist, I'm going to add in there, Naomi Schaefer Riley. Naomi, thanks so much for being here. I want to just address this with you right here at the top, because all we hear when we hear it again today, it's the media's fault, the media does this, the media does this, the media is putting us in a it gets out of hand after a while. I've been doing this 30 years. You've been doing this a long time as well. Don't we have to, if we're going to look at this, people want to blame the media. Let's separate the legitimate media from the internet wannabes and the media that's not really the news media. They don't really do it for a living.
Well, everyone's the media these days. I mean, if you, as you said, have a blog in your basement, you're the media. I guess, people are dividing this between the mainstream media and the rest of it. And, I think there is a certain amount of blame that the mainstream media should be taking here. Certainly in covering our elections, I think that they pick and choose the right times to reveal stories depending on whether it will help the candidate they want. I think it would be hard to get around that truth. But I think in general, in the last few weeks, the media has behaved pretty decently. I think that they have asked important questions of both candidates, and I think people are getting a pretty good sense of where the candidates stand.
Isn't it just when it comes down to the questioning that we're always looking for something new, at least the really good, legitimate reporters? See, I use the word legitimate over mainstream. I've just gotten tired of that MSM and the mainstream, what it means. But you've got Donald Trump is out there giving the media fresh meat every single day. It's something new that you can attack. They say, why don't you talk about Hillary? Well, we do talk about Hillary Clinton, but a lot of that stuff is for the last 10 or 15 or 20 years, it's brought up. But when you have somebody giving you all that fresh stuff, you're going to roll on it because that means clicks, sales, and advertising.
No, I think Donald Trump has played the media well for most of the primaries, and certainly he's gotten all of this free media coverage. As he says, he doesn't have to pay for advertising because CNN and Fox and MSNBC will have him on any night that he wants, regardless of what he's saying. But that being said, I really think that this is a case where yes, the media is going to always cover whatever new thing he says, but now he is a presidential candidate, so that's actually their responsibility.
Would you agree with me that when it comes down to any story, if you're covering it from a journalistic standpoint, that if you want to become president of the United States, that means that everything you've done since birth is pretty much open for fair game at that point? That's really what we're supposed to do, is find out about that person, yes?
I think that's probably true. I mean, it is one reason why a lot of good people don't go into politics, because anything that might have happened 20 years ago, any skeletons in their closet, even if they're minor ones, they don't want to bring up. So it certainly has problematic effects that's how we view our candidates. But yeah, that's the truth of the matter. It's all got to be an open book, and basically everything apparently except for Donald Trump's tax returns is.
I knew you were going to drop that in there somewhere. Speaking of books, if you will, let's spend a few minutes now and move on to your latest work. It's a book about the original Americans, how their lives and culture are disappearing from this nation, and few seem interested in doing anything about it. The book is called The New Trail of Tears: How Washington is Destroying American Indians. Is it not fair to say this is an issue that has been before so many administrations, so many politicians, yet no one wants to take up the mantle and push this fight forward?
Yeah, you could call it bipartisan neglect. It's kind of amazing what's happened so far on this issue. That is, most Americans don't really realize that the reason Native Americans are the poorest racial or ethnic group in this country, the reason that Native American women are twice as likely to be sexually assaulted, the reason their children are twice as likely to be abused, the reason suicide is the leading cause of death for American Indians aged 10 to 14 is not just because of things that happened 150 years ago. It's because of the policies that Washington is perpetrating every single day. And specifically, I think a lot of people don't understand what a reservation is. A reservation means that the federal government holds land in trust for American Indians. The only people, by the way, that we usually hold anything in trust for are children and the mentally incompetent. So it's pretty shameful that in the 21st century, this is the way we talk about American Indians. But it basically means they don't own their property. They don't have the property rights and the economic freedom that other Americans have.
The two words you used in there, you said children and incompetent. Is it fair to say then that we still have the majority of politicians, whether they're Republican or Democrat, who still look at the American Indian, Native Americans, if you will, whatever you want to call them, and they see them as children who are incompetent, unable to handle their own affairs, and if we don't do it, they're only going to make a mess?
I think what's happened is the reservations were, of course, originally a way of pushing Indians out of our way as we sort of pursued our manifest destiny policies. But now they're actually seen as a way of protecting Indians from these evil white people who want to buy their land or who want to engage in commerce with them. And so what we've done is we've created these reservations, and people think of them as this socialist, environmentalist utopia where Indians can simply pursue the way of life that they have for hundreds of years before we got here. But that is not what most American Indians want. And for this book, I traveled to many reservations and territories and communities, and I asked American Indians, what is it that you want? How is it that we could make your life better? And most of them want freedom.
When we talk about freedom, and if you want to get freedom in this system and the way it works right now, that to me says political power. You hate to say that, but isn't it fair to say that when it comes down to getting these things taken care of, getting their property rights back, they have no political power? You could ask somebody off the top of your head, name one of the highest ranking politicians who happens to be Native American, a real Native American. It doesn't happen out there. They don't have that juice.
Well, the sad part is I think a lot of the tribal governments and the federal government are sort of have the same interest in the status quo. So their idea is if you just sent the American Indian reservations more money, or if you engaged in more culturally sensitive policies, then it would all be better. And we have already and regularly send Indian reservations billions of dollars in food subsidies, housing subsidies, education, health services. But all of this billions of dollars, first of all, plenty of it is going into a vast bureaucracy called the Bureau of Indian Affairs.
I was going to say, where's it going? Because a lot of these people are homeless.
Yeah, the BIA actually has 9,000 employees, which is one employee for every 110 Indians. And they're basically just being micromanaged. One Indian legislator I talked to said, we are the most overregulated race on earth. And I think that's actually true. I spoke to one man who was trying to arrange with his neighbor to purchase some land to graze cattle on. And he and his neighbor had agreed on a price. And some guy from the BIA came in and said, no, you can't do that because we don't think that's fair market value. Of course, fair market value is what anyone will pay for the land. But the land is almost worthless because nobody has the title. If an American Indian wants to go get a mortgage from a bank, he cannot do so because the bank would say, well, you don't have the title to the land. We couldn't foreclose if you didn't pay us. And it's even worse than that, of course, because many Americans use their land and their homes as a source of equity if they wanted to start a small business. American Indians do not have access to that capital, and that's why there's almost no private sector on the reservations.
I got about 90 seconds left. Is it fair to say that much of the American public doesn't look at this as a problem and don't see Native Americans as being needy, if you will, or in trouble because we look at 400 plus casinos that are operated by more than 200 American Indian tribes. And quite frankly, much of America believes that, oh, don't worry about the Indians. Look, they're getting casino money. They're wealthy. Look at what the Seminoles have done with the Hard Rock Cafe. So don't worry about it. They're just fine. Fair to say that Americans just look at it, and that's why they don't think about this. They think they're all doing great.
I think that's part of it. The casinos really haven't been that great of a boon for many American Indians, in part because the money is distributed as if it were a welfare check. On the Seneca Territory in upstate New York, you turn 21 and someone sends you a check for $30,000. Chances are, the tribal officials tell me, you'll either buy a truck or you'll spend it on drugs or alcohol. This is not improving their situation, unfortunately.
Very quickly, 30 seconds. What's being done in government? Anything being done to change this property rights issue?
Well, there are a couple of things that are being done to try to restrict the growth of the BIA and allow Indians at least to engage in more natural resource development. And actually in Canada, they're actually trying to push something through called the First Nation Property Ownership Act, which would give American Indians actually the underlying title to their land. And I think that's something we need to consider here as well.
These are the first and the true Native Americans who, quite frankly, when it comes down to so much and the way that they live in right now, it is deplorable. The book, once again, is called The New Trail of Tears, How Washington is Destroying American Indians, whomever gets into office in 2017. Let's hope that they do something about this. Naomi Schaefer Riley, it's always a pleasure. Thanks so much for joining us. The intervention that likely will never happen, the cash payment everyone knew was going to happen yet seemed so surprised, and the tax plan that will drive this country into a level of debt we have never before experienced. The numbers are sitting right there, and numbers in this case are the facts. It's all sauce for the political animal. Get on the line at 1-877-Newsmax, and you too may be able to join us as we continue right here on the Friday Eve edition of The Hardline.